Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's update on Tropical Storm Debby. So, Tropical Storm Debby is currently situated over far southeastern Georgia, near the Florida border, and taking a look at the 7 p.m. update, Tropical Storm Debby has maximum sustained winds of 45 miles per hour, gusts up to 65 miles per hour, is moving to the northeast, and has a minimum central pressure of 996 millibars. Taking a look at the latest cone for Tropical Storm Debby, as we go into 1 a.m. tomorrow morning, looking at a 40-mile-per-hour tropical storm with 50-mile-per-hour gusts moving to the east-northeast. And then as we go into 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, looking at a 40-mile-per-hour tropical storm with 50-mile-per-hour gusts moving to the east, moving back over the western Atlantic south of Savannah, Georgia. And then as we go into 1 a.m. Wednesday morning, a 40-mile-per-hour tropical storm with 50-mile-per-hour gusts moving to the east-northeast. Going into 1 p.m. Wednesday afternoon, a 45-mile-per-hour tropical storm with 60-mile-per-hour gusts moving to the north, and then going into 1 a.m. Thursday morning, re-strengthening to a 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm with 65-mile-per-hour gusts moving to the north, and then looking at a second landfall, 1 p.m. Thursday afternoon as a 60-mile-per-hour tropical storm with 70-mile-per-hour gusts moving to the north. Landfall will be around Georgetown or southwestern or just southwest of Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. Then as we go into Friday, 1 p.m., 35-mile-per-hour tropical depression with 45-mile-per-hour gusts moving to the northeast, located just northwest of Fayetteville, North Carolina, could move through Raleigh, North Carolina. And then as we go into Saturday, 1 p.m., looking at a 35-mile-per-hour tropical depression with 45-mile-per-hour gusts moving to the northeast, situated directly over the Delmarva area. So taking a look at our latest watches and warnings for Debby, still have a lot of tropical storm warnings across northeastern Florida and southeastern Georgia. And we already have a lot of flash flood warnings across southeastern Georgia, as rain bands are already starting to train over the same areas from Debby, including Savannah, Georgia. Got a lot of flash flood warnings for Savannah and surrounding areas. Got a lot of storm surge warnings still across southeastern Georgia, from St. Mary's through Brunswick, through Savannah, through Charleston. And as Debby slows over the next 3 to 5 days, we're going to be looking at catastrophic flooding, unfortunately, across Georgia and the Carolinas, as Debby's only going to move from here to here over the next 3 days between this evening and Thursday. Taking a look at the latest key messages for Tropical Storm Debby, potentially historic heavy rainfall across southeast Georgia and the coastal plain of South Carolina through Saturday morning will likely result in areas of catastrophic flooding. Very strong wording from the National Weather Service. Heavy rainfall will likely result in considerable flooding impacts from portions of central and northern Florida and across portions of central and northeastern North Carolina through Saturday morning. Dangerous storm surge and tropical storm conditions will spread northward along the southeast U.S. coast from northeastern Florida to North Carolina through the middle of the week. Storm surge and tropical storm watches and warnings have been issued for portions of these areas. Residents in the storm surge watch and warning area should follow any advice given by local officials. In portions of Florida where Debby has passed, deadly hazards remain, including downed power lines and flooded areas. Ensure generators are properly ventilated to avoid carbon monoxide poisoning. Exercise caution when using chainsaws and power tools, and drink plenty of water to avoid heat exhaustion. So let's get into these rainfall accumulations. Looking at the rainfall forecast from the Weather Prediction Center, we're looking at 1 to 2 inches of rain across northeast Georgia, the western Carolinas, western Virginia, eastern West Virginia, and much of the Florida peninsula in the light green area. As we go into the dark green areas, we're looking at 2 to 4 inches of rain, including in Charlotte and Roanoke. Going into the yellow area, this is where flooding is going to start to be a problem. We're looking at 4 to 6 inches of rain across much of Virginia and west central North Carolina into the Delmarva. This includes areas like Washington, D.C., Richmond, Norfolk, and Salisbury. Going into these lighter orange shade areas, looking at 6 to 8 inches of rainfall accumulation across northeastern North Carolina. As we go into the darker orange shade, 8 to 12 inches of rain. This includes Raleigh-Durham, And then as we start going into these red shade areas, this is where historic life-threatening flooding is going to be very likely. 12 to 16 inches of rain are expected in areas like Savannah through Wilmington. And then as we go into these maroon areas, we are looking at 16 to 20 inches of rain forecasted for the Charleston, South Carolina area. And where we have this pink area, could be seeing over 20 inches of rain in localized areas. If you live across eastern Georgia, southeastern South Carolina, eastern North Carolina, you need to be preparing now for life-threatening historic flooding from Debby, as these kinds of rainfall accumulations are going to result in widespread devastating flooding for a large area. And if evacuations are ordered, please make sure you heed those evacuation orders, as we can save lives from this kind of historic rainfall event across this area. So taking a look at the Weather Prediction Center's flooding outlook, we have a high risk of excessive flooding rainfall across northeast Florida, southeast Georgia, southeastern South Carolina, and southern North Carolina in the pink shade area, including Savannah and Charleston. A moderate risk, which includes Tampa Bay, Augusta through Raleigh, Durham, and Wilmington. Slight risk of flooding across central Florida through the western Carolinas, Virginia, and the Delmarva. And then we have a marginal risk of flooding across much of central western Georgia, eastern Alabama, through the Appalachia region in the dark green area. So the bottom line is, make sure you're preparing for life-threatening historic flooding across eastern Georgia and the Carolinas from Tropical Storm Debby. And unfortunately, it's not just going to be the southeast. Looking at our overall quantitative precipitation forecast from the Weather Prediction Center, if you live across New Jersey, through Long Island, through southeastern New England, you're also going to see 7 to 10 inches of rain from Tropical Storm Debby, as Debby is expected to move up the east coast over the next 5 to 7 days. And if you live inland, in this lighter orange shade, 5 to 7 inches of rain are going to be expected as well. And even if you live across Maine into New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, you're going to be seeing 3 to 6 inches of rain from Debby. So we're looking at a widespread flash flooding nightmare up and down the east coast from Tropical Storm Debby. So make sure you're making your flooding preparations now if you live across eastern Georgia and the Carolinas and up the east coast over the next 5 to 7 days, as catastrophic flooding is going to be expected. Thanks for watching this evening's update. Please stay safe and have a wonderful evening, my friends.